Hey, welcome to today's video. In this video, let's create a monster. It's going to be a monster bust. And in this part one, I'm just going to sculpt it. So we'll just sculpt the character. And in part two, we will poly paint it, add some fiber mesh. You can see little hairs on his neck, and bring it into Blender for a quick rendering. So this incredible monster was created by somebody named Adam Munoa, and let me show you his account. Alright, so the artist name is Adam Munoa, and you can look him up. Here's his handle, Munoa13. So on his account, one of the characters that I saw was this guy right here, and I immediately fell in love with him. I'm also eyeing this guy as well. Adam did give me permission to use any one of these creatures, which is really cool, and I'm definitely going to do that. So the first one in this video I want to get my hands on, or attempt to try to even create something like this, is this guy right here. All right. So again, give Adam a follow, and let's jump into ZBrush and see if we can attempt to recreate this guy in 3D. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to park my reference right here, and I'm using Pure Ref for that. And to begin, there's a couple different ways we can do that. What I would like to do is go to the light box, and I'm just going to activate my Dynamesh Sphere 128 that I usually like to start with. So we only have one angle of this character, right? This view right here, which is should be more than enough. And let's take a closer look at the design of the character. So you have this really amazing transparent bottom of his head, and you can see there's some brains in there, which is going to be really fun, right? We should be able to render all of that in either Maya or Blender. I think Blender is probably the fastest way to render him out, and maybe slap some poly paint on this guy. But anyway, so you could see that there's going to be this second eye coming from the middle, and I think even though it's a side view, it does look like he just has one eye, right? And two tongues, and completely 100% outrageous and insane. I love it. I think it's great. So how would you begin to follow something like this, something so unusual? I think what I'm going to do is, instead of just using the Pure Ref to look at it, I would also like to load this image up and use it as a reference image to overlay, right? So we can get the shape as close as we can, and kind of block it out, right? So let's do that. Let's move on to the blocking. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this image, and you are welcome to take a screenshot of this on your end and follow me along, and let's go ahead and do the same thing, right? Import this image as a JPEG into ZBrush. So to do that, once you have your image, what you can do is go to textures, and let's go ahead and do, let's click on this texture thing here, and let's do import. Once you find the image, you should see it appear right here. So I'm gonna select it, and you can see that it automatically was placed in this big box right here. And the next thing that I need to do is I need to add that image to Spotlight. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button right here, and that's going to place this image into something called Spotlight. And now we can use this to overlay, right, our image over our Dynamesh to kind of get the shape proper, right? So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to click on this button right here to scale this, and maybe we can just get it maybe a little bit larger, right? The other one that we want to do is we definitely want to change the opacity, right? Because I just want the contour, the shape of the character. Because I already have it as a reference, I don't really need it to be so vivid and bright. So how do we turn down the opacity of this? To do that, we can use one of these buttons here. If you just click on these, it's going to tell you what they are, right? You can click on each one. And the one that I'm looking for is this one called opacity. Now, if I click on this and start dragging, you can see that now it's going to get 100% bright. And if I go this way, it's going to give me something really, really perfect, right? Something along these lines is all I need. Just so I can see my Dynamesh, and I can see the outline of Adam's image, right? Very cool. Once you're done and you are happy both with the scale and opacity, just press Z on your keyboard, and that will automatically exit the Spotlight edit mode and just kind of have this image floating in space. Now, the other thing that I want to make sure as I build my base mesh or block out, I definitely do not want to be in the perspective mode, right? So let's jump out of that, hold down the Shift key and snap perfectly flat on this view right here. And obviously this character is sideways, so I'm gonna mimic that. I'm gonna go to the side and hold down the Shift key and snap sideways. So now I know the sphere is in orthographical view. I know the camera is positioned sideways, and now I can use the sphere to attempt to align it with the reference image, right? If you press Alt and left click, you can change the scale of this, which is great. And let's just start using kind of spheres to kind of block this out, right? What I'm gonna do is I'll probably start from the top here, and let me just grab my move and literally just position it where I want the beginning of the character to be, right? And now I can just start scaling this and essentially just blocking this out. And this is great because it's going to give us perfect proportions of the characters. We don't have to guess any of that. We can just use these spheres. If we open up subtools, we can of course use the different layers as well, right? Maybe the mouth could be a different layer, the neck a third layer, and so on. But for this right here, let me just hold on the Control key, drag another one. Let's just make this a little bit smaller and place it where the outline is of the head, and I'll just do something like this. And you know what, I can even get it close enough where it's so close that it's following the contour pretty much perfectly. Let's do Control, drag another one, and again just block out the form that we need. And let's just do something like this, make this a little bit larger, and very cool. Press Control, let's do one more. I'm gonna ignore the eye for a minute because I just want to get the actual head shape first, right? So let me just do something like this where this eye is, and I can even put one here as well. Just do something like that. So it's almost like using Z spheres, but you're using, you know, you're just using normal spheres to block it out, right? What about this guy right here? Definitely let's grab reference for that as well. I'm gonna press Control, go all the way to the top here, and let's just block out this eye here as well, so we know where that is. We know the size, we know the distance. Press Control and make this a little bit smaller. And just keep following along, right? I'm gonna keep going. And don't worry about the fact that some of these spheres have this, obviously this intersections between them, right? We can always smooth that out really fast and take care of that. So we just really want kind of the flow and the size and proportions. That's all we really need, right? To stay as close as possible. Right here, we can even, if we wanted to make it, you know, a little bit longer, why not? And the only thing I want to make sure is that I stay true to the flow of the shape, which is going to be something along these lines. And I think that's pretty good. All right, let's press Control and click to take a look and see what we have so far. We can get out of the gizmo mode and kind of review everything and make sure everything feels good, right? At this point, we can even use the move brush to maybe adjust some of this just a little bit. Now, if you do something like that, make sure your active symmetry is on and make sure that, you know, you are in the correct axes. You can also use the infinity brush, which I actually strongly suggest. This will make sure that it will evenly grab both sides, right? It's gonna grab the left and the right. Infinity just means it's projecting your point of movement all the way across, right? So if I do something like this, I can very carefully adjust this, and I know it's gonna be adjusting it on both sides, right? The left and the right once again. All right, right here, I could see that I could just do a little bit better, get a little bit closer, and do something like this. We can even adjust this right here, right? We know that this is going to be the place of the eye. Very nice. All right, now to keep going, I'm going to simply insert another sphere. Let me just drop one in. All right, if we wanted this to be consistent with these, just make sure you turn Dynamesh mode on if you want to. and that's going to be exactly the same as that, right? And just like with the other one, let's just continue moving this around. All right, so I'm gonna place this here, and let's just do something like that. I'm gonna ignore the neck for a minute. I think that's gonna be another layer, right? I just kind of want the bottom of his face to be its own layer, right? And all of these, the gums, the teeth, we can add all of that. That's no problem. I wouldn't mind, honestly, to go to, let me grab my infinity brush and just start moving this around, right? Let's just maybe make this a little more custom as far as the flow goes. So all we need is just create some volume for this, right? So I think that's great. And if I wanted to, I can just keep moving this down and essentially just start building something that looks a lot like what I'm seeing here, right? Just gonna custom drag it. If I needed to redynamesh that, control drag, redynamesh, and just continue moving it along, right? Remember, if we redynamesh, it's kind of an infinite clay mode. It can never run out of resolution. We just keep going, which is really, really cool. And I'm just gonna keep going, control drag to redynamesh. And essentially, I just want, I'm not gonna worry about the teeth. I just want the base shape of the jaw, like the lower jaw, right? And I could do something like this, and that's pretty close, in my opinion, to what I need. All right. Now, I know we have no idea how it's going to look from the front, so we'll take care of that in a minute. Right now, we're just worrying about the side only, right? And that's all we want at this point. Let's go ahead and do the neck. Same thing. I'm just going to insert a sphere. I'm going to take that sphere, turn it into Dynamesh, grab my move, put it right here. And if I wanted to, I could even do something like this and just start turning it, right? Because that's going to be essentially his neck. So somewhere right here is perfect. Do control and drag to do another one. And maybe this one is a little bit smaller, right? Let's grab our move infinite, and I'm going to just start pulling this, right? Start pulling it, control drag to redynamesh, and just fill all this up, right? So this is going to be kind of the backside of him. So, and just like the reference, we'll just create somewhat like a bust of this guy, right? So we'll just go down to kind of the lower neck here. All right, so that looks pretty interesting from the side. Looks pretty close in my opinion, right? If I wanted to hide this for 1 second, if you wanted to hide the reference, you can just do Shift Z, and you can see what you have created. So you should see something very similar to what I'm seeing here. And now if we look on the front of the character, we can see that obviously some of these don't match, right? I'm liking, and this is where some of the artistic decisions need to come into play as far as deciding, you know, how does he look from the front, right? One thing that we know for sure is that this is indeed round. So this is very close to what I think the final would be, right? And same thing with that, and even all of this, right? So, but this piece right here is not really matching, right? So let's alt click on that to select it. Let's grab our move brush, press X, make sure we are doing this in on both sides. Make our brush kind of large, and again, just fill out the volume, right? You want to kind of drag this out and create something that you can imagine, right? His mouth would be from the front. So it's obviously going to be something like this, right? We like all of this being skinny, right? All of this is thin. So this neck piece, I'm going to press Alt and select the neck. And let's just pull this in, make sure we're in active symmetry. And just like clay, right? We're just going to start matching all of this like we're sculpting. We do Control and drag to redynamesh, hold on the Shift key to smooth this out. And very quickly, I got to something that looks a lot like what I would need for a blockout, right? So all of this is great. Let's review and take a look. I think, again, this is nice and skinny. You got your round eye right here. All this is round. The neck is round and thick, which is great, right? We don't really have the need for these sharp corners here. So I'm going to press Alt and select that, do Control and drag, and let me just smooth these out for now. and do something like that, right? We don't really need them. If you're having a hard time getting rid of these, I love using trim dynamic. Just do sub and turn your intensity way down so it's very weak, and just kind of start very slowly just pressing this in, and essentially just kind of molding it to what you need it to be, right? All right, and then control drag to Dynamesh, hold on the shift key, smooth this out, and there you go. We have something that is pretty perfect. So this is going to be the beginning of our sculpt. We can also go to perspective view and get a really good feel of how this is going to look, moving forward, right? Hopefully you followed along and you did something very similar. So moving forward, I think I'm going to I'm going to keep these at 3 layers, just so I have a little more control over the neck, the lower jaw here, and the top of the head. So at any point we can always mold them together, but initially I'm just going to keep them separate. And let's just start kind of talking about the actual detail on this, right? So starting from the top, I'm going to definitely fuse all of this together in Dynamesh mode. So I'm going to control and drag to do something like this. And now since we fuse them together, you can see that they are no longer separate. If I hold on the shift key, I can smooth all of this very quickly. And now we have something like this, right? Which is great. Let's go ahead and do the same thing in the back. All right, so we don't really have the need for these lines right there, right? Because all of this is super smooth, and you do have some lines in the back, but we can actually just draw those in. So the first thing I suggest we do is get rid of any surface that's super wobbly, right? You can see that this right here is very clean. So what would be the trick to really quickly get rid of all of this uneven surface? So obviously the answer is zRemesher. I'm going to go to geometry, go to let's go to zRemesher. Where is it? Right here. And let's turn this to like 1. I'm going to leave adapt off. And I do like my symmetry on X. That's great. Let's go ahead and do zRemesh. I like all of this. I'm going to do a little bit of a polish, like a 5. And very quickly you can see that I just got rid of all these uneven things, and this is super close to what I'm seeing in the reference, right? The shape is pretty great. So I wouldn't mind going back into Dynamesh mode, but now I'm sort of in this low poly res kind of a game. This would be a great, if you dial this down even more, this would be perfect for like a game model, but we're not doing that. We're going to do a high res sculpt first, right? Not first, I mean, that's all I'm going to do. But so to get out of this mode, what I'm going to do is press Control D to subdivide this a bunch of times until this is nice and smooth. That's what I want, right? I want this to be high density with a lot of polys. I'm 120,000, and this is perfect. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete lower. I don't need lower, and I'm going to go back into Dynamesh mode, because I also don't really care about topology at all. I'm just full-on sculpting mode. I just want to have fun. So I'm going to dial this up to like, let's do 256. Press Enter and do Dynamesh. And that should give us enough geometry to play around. And the first thing we can do right away is let's start sculpting some of the stuff that we're seeing. And I wouldn't mind starting from the top, right? Let's just pick something super simple. So to get the top, just forget about the entire character. Let's just only worry about this at first, right? Now we know the proportions are perfect and the distancing and the spacing is perfect. So now we could just look at the reference and see if we can recreate something similar. All right, so how do you get this? How do you get this effect where you have this eyeball with a awesome eyelid, right? Seems to be the eyelid almost looks like it's a separate section. And then you have this, this green part, which is kind of holding these two pieces together, right? So the first thing I would like to do is I would like to push this aspect in here. So to do that, I'm going to grab the inflate brush and let me go to sub. And what I'm going to do is I'm still in active symmetry. That's fine because I'm nice and symmetrical. But essentially, I just want to press this in. And the reason I'm pressing this in is because this is where the eyeball is going to go, right? So something along these lines, maybe just make this a little bit larger. And really just press this in. And let's just see if we like that. We could do control and drag to make sure we don't have anything weird. We can also grab the move brush and very carefully adjust some of this too, right? You don't want to make this too large because, again, we can't play with scale because we got the scale down by tracing our or blocking our shape, right? So, but just very carefully, we can just adjust this and get something like this. Next, I definitely want to insert that sphere in there. So to do that, we already know how to do that. I'm going to go to Subtool and I'm going to insert a sphere, and that's going to be my eye, right? To get the eye into position, let's go into the side view, jump out of the perspective view. Let's snap by holding the Shift key, put it into position, and just scale it down, right? And just scale it where it makes sense and it kind of fits into this whole space right here. If it's helpful for you, you can also turn this on, which is going to be transparency mode, and that's going to give you a really good view. It does look like the eye is, you know, is almost like this, right? So what we need to do is we can, of course, scale this, and let's adjust some of that, right? I'm going to jump out of transparency mode, grab my move, and let's do Alt select that shape, make sure symmetry is on, and let's just adjust this a little more, right? So it's hugging the eyeball, something along these lines. I think that's great. Okay, let's take a look. I like that. I think that's cool. Now, how do we get this really awesome eyelid going? So to do that, I would like to take this eye. Let's go ahead and turn it into Dynamesh. That's fine. And we could polish it to make it a little smoother. If you think it's still a little too low poly, maybe we can make it, instead of 128, let's do 256, right? Let's do control and drag and do a little polish. And I think that's a little bit better, right? Just give us just a little more res for the eye. It's only 10,000 points, so it's still pretty low. And now let's use this shape to create the eyelid. So I'm going to duplicate this, right? Now I have two of them. And I'm going to take this top one and just, we can inflate it. And by the way, my UI, if you want to follow any one of my tutorials, my UI is available on my community tab. You can just download it. It's a Dropbox link, and it's going to have the zip file with all of the UI that I'm using. Even the brushes are included if you want to grab that. And there's two things we can do right now. We can scale this and, you know, make sure it's centered. Obviously it's going to be centered, and we can just scale it just a little bit. That's one way of doing it. You can also inflate it. Same, doesn't really matter. Going to give you the same effect, but essentially I just made the eyelid a little bit larger than the inner part of the eye. And now what I can do is I can just cut it off, right? So I'm going to Control Shift, go into I'm going to go into my quick picks here, go into knife curve, and I'm holding the Control Shift the entire time. Now what I'm going to do is from right to left, I'm going to draw a line. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to let go of Control and Shift, press Spacebar to move this around now. And let's just cut off the bottom of the eyelid. So something like that, right? That should give us something really close to what we need. And now we can sculpt this into an eyelid that is, you can see that it's separate from the, you know, from this eye piece, and it's separate from kind of the, you know, the base, right? So it's like its own little component. And what I want to do is I definitely want to create this really nice detail right there. So I'm just going to do the same thing. Let's just make this large enough where it's kind of matching the deform. I'm going to find the right angle too, just a little bit forward, and just push this down, right? And then let me see if I can match this, what I'm seeing there, right? So something, this seems to be up, and this is down. So something along these lines, maybe. I wouldn't mind to kind of fatten this up a little bit, so I am going to inflate this just a little. and I like what's happening there. That's fine. I'm going to control and drag and do a little polish. And now you see what I did. I made this a little bit thicker. I'm going to do Alt and click on this. And let me just adjust this just a little bit to make sure it fits nicely. I don't want to have any spaces in there, although that is kind of cool actually, but we don't want to do that, right? But we want to adjust this just enough where it looks like it's fitting in there and it's kind of snugly fits in there, right? And if for whatever reason, if you wanted to make this inflate that, you can always use the inflate brush and just inflate all of, oops, go to add, of course, and just inflate all of this, right? You can do that. You can see it's a little bit inflated on the very top there. So maybe something like that, right? Maybe that's a little too much. I could hold down the Shift key, smooth this out, but you get the idea. So I'm just showing you all the different tools. Now look at these little things right there. We have a little thing right here, right past the eye. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna add like a little bubble here. Okay, and then I have another one there. So I'm just gonna keep using my inflate brush. Why not? It doesn't really matter. Let's do that, and let's do another one here. And now we can make it a little bit longer by using the move brush. And of course, make sure your active symmetry is on. And let's just pull this guy out and pull this guy out. And this one seems to be a little bit smaller. You know, I don't know how crazy we want to get as far as like following the exact reference, but let's just get as close as we can, the best we can do, right? Without spending too much time. Obviously, I don't want to spend hours and hours trying to get it perfect, but get it as close as we can so Adam doesn't yell at us when he sees this, if he sees this. And I'm going to do something like this, right? Again, just looking at the reference. And I think all of that is pretty good. I'm seeing a lot of really nice lines there. To get those going, we just need to use something like even Damien Standard would work. So let's just grab Damien Standard. And if you have a tablet, this would be a good place for that to, you know, to just draw some lines. I'm in sub mode. My Damien Standard is set to 33 right now. I don't know if that's good or not. I think it's fine. And active symmetry is on. And let's just do, let's see, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3. So I have like 3 lines here. You can do 1, and then you can press 1 on your keyboard to make them stronger if you want. So that's a thing. You could do that. Let's do 1. And let's do 1 more. Right? So I think that's pretty close. I have another line right underneath the second bump, which is right here somewhere. There's a little bit distance there. You know, again, you don't have to be that precise. Right here, this is interesting, right? It has like a little, let's inflate this part too, right here. And we have another little blob there. So do something like this. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Let's do control and drag to re-Dynamash everything. And you know, you can even do it a couple times if you need to polish this just a little bit. I'm gonna go to like, you know, like 7 or 8 and do control drag again and just make sure. It looks like I might need more resolution here actually, but I'm just gonna stay away from needing more. If you want to pinch these, go to pinch, and we can just pinch this right here, right? So it looks a little more organic right there. Okay, I do feel like this is not enough res actually. Let me go to, let's go to 512. We'll double it. Do control and drag, and now we just went, well, we went from like 200 to 891,000. But I think this is better, right? Because now it's gonna, let's polish this. It's gonna give us a lot cleaner sculpt. I think that's what we want. All right, so we'll do that. And then I'm seeing some lines there, so I'm gonna do those. And very carefully, let's just see if we can maybe turn this down a little bit. And let's just see if we can add something similar. I see 2 there. Okay. if you hold on the shift key right now, I'm smoothing at 100%. Remember, you can hold on the shift key and you can change the, not the RGB one, but the intensity of smoothing could be adjusted as well. So, you know, maybe you want to do 50 while you're doing this, so you don't lose some of this detail completely as you're smoothing this stuff. So you have full control, right? That's important. Just really would like to have this a little bit nicer. All right. That's fine. Let's take a look and see. I think that is really good. Let's see, what else can we do? I see some lines right there, so I'm going to do, let's do Alt and select this shape, grab our move, and this feels like it's a little bit too low. Maybe something like this. And I have this really nice, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to create that effect here in 3D, but some of this has this really nice thickness right there, right? So maybe the sides could just be poking out just a little more. And I'm just showing you, for anyone who is super new, how important it is to pay attention to every little detail, especially if you're trying to recreate something, right? And this right here needs to be 512 as well. Let's just bump this up. Control and drag. And you have this nice detail right there. If you wanted to, you can turn the lazy mouse on, right? That's going to give you more control. So I see something like that, and then there's a third one up here. Maybe smooth out the end of it and just have something like that. I think it's pretty close. All right. I think that's pretty much it for the top here, right? Let's just keep going. I'm gonna zoom out and see what could be next. Let's just continue working on the bottom part right here. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create the shell first, and then the brain is gonna be more like when we're painting, we can create another piece inside. So it's probably not gonna be part of this video. Because that's going to be it's more like a texturing trick, I think. So that's fine. So I like this. Let's go ahead and create these lines, and we can figure out how many we need. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Let's do the same thing. I'm going to press Alt, select this shape right here, make my brush just a little bit larger. And the first one is going to be right underneath this antenna, or I guess the eye. So this is going to be like right there. All right, so I put the 8 lines in, just like Adam has. And if we wanted to, we could use the inflate to maybe add a little more roundness right here, right? We could do that. Let's fluff this up a little and just create a little more volume so it looks like you can see these really nice curves that the character has. So let's do the same thing, right? Just go around and just add that same kind of effect. All right, so very quickly we got something that looks very similar, right? I think that looks good. Let's do Control and drag to redynamesh, and we can smooth this out if we needed to. Some of these lines right here, I would love to pinch them as well. I'm gonna grab my pinch and just do something like this. And look at the before and after, right? You can see that the pinching is gonna make these looking very sharp versus, I know I could have probably achieved that with my Wacom tablet here, but I was not able to do it. So I'm just gonna help myself and do, because I like this to be, you know, this is kind of a bubbly, and then you have this line, and then you have this really sharp end on both sides, right? I think that's really important. And if we have something super wobbly, we don't have to worry about this, because we can always smooth this part out. We can always also, you know, z-remesh this if you wanted to get rid of anything super blobby or whatever. But I think this works because this is a very organic looking character. Okay. Now the next thing is going to be Let's add these little bubbles that we're seeing, right? These really cool bubbles sticking out from his head. So to do that, I think I could just literally just use an insert brush. I'm gonna go to my brushes, I'm gonna press I, and let me insert a something like sphere is fine. Let's grab this insert sphere, and I'm gonna make sure that my active symmetry is on. Let's just mimic something very similar, right? We have like a little one here, and when you start inserting these, you can see that there's going to be a spacing issue initially, and to control that, you can use something called right here. You have the depth controller, and if you're not sure where that is, that's going to be under brush, depth brush placement. So I just have it dragged on my UI, but controlling these is going to give you the depth control. So now if I try to let me go to the side again, and let's just start dragging these, right? You can see that right now he's in a little more, but maybe maybe actually that seems to be pretty perfect actually, but you get the idea. So you can control that, right? Maybe this is just a little bit too big, and I'm just going to try to copy what I'm seeing here. I see like two little ones, one a little bit bigger here. For this part here, I think I'm gonna jump out of symmetry and just do like one big one in the middle, because I think this is gonna be more of on the middle, right? And I suppose that makes more sense. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's gonna be better if this was centered, right? And that feels pretty cool. I see that it doesn't really have anything closer to the middle here, so this does seem to be somewhat empty because it's going to reveal that brain underneath, right? And of course, we can paint all of that as a poly paint as well. Let's do Control and drag to get rid of our mask. We can see what that looks like so far, right? Some of this obviously has different shaping, so some of these are a little bit longer and different size. So to fix that, we can always use our move topology, which is really nice because it's going to allow you to only do specific things without worrying about messing up the rest of the mesh. So like this one right here is a little bit longer. I'm going to press my symmetry on and just make this same thing, just make it a little bit longer. This right here is a little bit longer. It's not quite perfectly round, right? Then you have that one. Here is a little bit different size, and just get it as close as we can to the reference. I missed the fourth one, right? There's a fourth one on top. Let me go back into my IMM brush. And let me insert that little fourth one that I'm seeing right there. Okay, very cool. Control and drag to get rid of it. And I think that is very close. We can be perfectionist and we can even overlay it, right? You can always do Shift Z, remember that. And you have this to overlay it. And if you wanted to do that, that would be one way. I'm going to press Shift Z again to hide it. But that would be one way to get it exactly precise. If you jump out of the perspective view and really, really align those, right? You could do that. But I'm kind of eyeballing it, and I think in my opinion, this is really, really close, right, to what I'm seeing. I'm not loving this eyelid. I think the eyelid needs a little more work. It feels like the bottom of the eyelids are a little more puffy, which I absolutely love. So I'm going to use the inflate brush, and let's go ahead and turn on lazy mouse. And what I'm going to do is I just need to kind of inflate the bottom of this with a little more intensity, right? So I'm going to use the lazy mouse and just see if I can just inflate the bottom of this eyelid right there. I think that's important, right? So let's do that. I don't really mind that it's getting a little blobby, that's okay. I am in 512 resolution, so I can do Control and drag to redynamesh and smooth this out very quickly, right? And let me just really emphasize this right here, because Adam has, this part is really kind of sticking out. I love that. Okay. If we wanted to, another trick we could do is we can use the, let's see, we can use the trim dynamic with lazy mouse on just a little bit, and we can press this in, not too much, right? I don't want to do too much. Let me just do like 4. But what I could do is I can go through and just press this in a little and give it like more of a flat look for maybe the front of the eye. I think that actually works, right? We can even do the same thing here. And that's going to give this, create like a nice line there. And I think that's a little bit better, right? Just a little love on the eyelid makes a big difference in my opinion. One other thing that I would suggest at this point, if you wanted to, you can always change your materials and just preview your work. I like to use this, let me move my reference. I like to use this polyskin to do a preview. And this is really cool, right? Because it's going to give you this really nice effect of previewing your mesh. Let me select the next, so these are like all the same colors. So you can see what that looks like, and I think we are on a really good solid track for this, right? It gives me a lot of confidence knowing as I'm sculpting this that I overlaid to create the base mesh. So I know I don't have to go around and adjust how this feels, right? The sizing or the position of this, because I literally traced this, right? The only thing I need to do really is just focus on the details. So tracing the base mesh is super important. And you know, you guys, I also know that there's a lot of new tools out there, like you can run some of these images through AI and that's going to give you base meshes. But in my opinion, this is a much better way of doing it as an artist, right? Because you learn so much by doing it manually. And honestly, if you want to, you know, not cheat and become a better artist, this is a better way to do it, because then you kind of work on those skills and those muscles to understand how the shapes feel and their proportions and scaling. So, you know, as much as you can, try to avoid, in my opinion, unless you're like a crazy speed crunch for work or something. If you're doing it for fun and just learning, definitely do it manually instead of using some of those newer tracing AI tools, right? All right, so now I'm going to start touching this up. Let me actually adjust this neck a little more, and I can see that this right here is much thicker, right? It's going inside right here, and this whole part right here is just a little bit thicker, so I can start adjusting some of that as well. And it's definitely uneven. It has some hairs. We can do some fiber mesh for that too, but let me just adjust this so it doesn't look kind of strange here, right? And you can see how all of this is very uneven. I can hold on the shift key and make this a little bit nicer, but you can see that we are going to have to go in and add those folds and everything, right? Very cool. Let's just keep going, right? So I think all of this back here is finished. Let's talk about the front of the eye and the fact that the bottom jaw part right here is kind of going inside. You can see these lines right here, like all of this is going inside, right? So technically all of this here needs to be over more. So I'm going to press Alt and grab this guy and literally just start pushing this in. And what I'm going to do is do something like this, right? Let's do Control and drag to clean this up if we need to. Let's grab this, and essentially I want to create kind of this same effect where you have like this place for the teeth, right? So let's just start pulling all of this down right here. It's almost like a skull in some strange way, and I see some sharp things here as well. So I'm just going to create a place where I can insert some teeth and do something like this. I think is good, right? If we wanted to flatten some of that for our teeth, remember we can use our Damien standard, our trim dynamic, and just maybe flatten this a little so we can insert some of those teeth in there. Although this is kind of, you know, somewhat round, but I think this would be nice addition. And give us a little more form. If we wanted to start pulling out some of these sharp things that I'm seeing right there, let's talk about that, right? I can see that this here needs to be pulled a little more, right? It's kind of pulled all the way to the back. All of those little details I think are really important, right? So I want to pull all this the same way, or I guess again as close as we can. And now what I'm going to do is let me grab this here and start pulling this down more, right? All right, and let's see. So now to get these little sharp things, what I can do is I can grab my move, active symmetry is on. I can turn on my AccuCurve, make my brush just a bit smaller, and I can start pulling out some of the stuff. So like this big one right here could just be something like this. And if I wanted to add that nice curve there, I'm going to get out of the AccuCurve mode and just kind of move this up and create kind of the same. You can see this really nice curve there. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. Okay, somewhat unusual, right? Let's do Control and drag. Let's smooth this out. Really smooth this out because we don't want these edges to be too sharp, but we can also move them around, make sure they don't look too blobby, right? And all of that is really cool and fun. All right, let's see. So what's next? I want to talk about this eyeball right here. So let's create the eye here the same exact way as we did up there, right? So same exact way would be, let's just grab the inflate brush and let's just literally press this in. And when you press it in, just pay attention to the spacing of the bottom, you know, where this tooth is, right? So you want to make sure you understand the spacing right here, and also the spacing between, I don't know what to call this, top eye, or like in the antenna, eye antenna. So the spacing right here is important, and the spacing right here is important, right? So what I'm going to do is go to sub mode. Let me jump out of the lazy mouse and literally just start pressing all of this in right here, right? And I want to create kind of a large place to insert my eye. So I'll do something like that. It's starting to do something really crazy. If that happens on your end, just do Control and drag and just smooth this out. And then that should allow you to press this even more. And at this point, if I click, let me do Alt and click on this shape. I actually don't need this, so I'm going to press this down, right? That's part of the neck. Let's do Alt and click on this one. And now what we need to do is just kind of create kind of that same feel and look. Just move this around, create like a lip there. All right, and before I do any more sculpting, I think it would be good to insert the eye back in. So I'm going to do Insert. Let's do that eye, go into a side view like we did before. And I can also, let me turn it into, I think it was 256, right? We did Dynamesh. Grab my move. And let's just get it into position and make sure it feels good and, you know, it makes sense from this side, right? From this side, this looks pretty good. Now I can go here and start adjusting it and see if I can mimic what I'm seeing here, which is going to be, let's see. So this guy right here is going to be a little bit lower, right? The bottom lid. Let's do, let's press Alt. And let's just push all of this down. I'm going to press it down and I'm going to really pay attention to the fact that this is folding a little bit. So I need to create kind of a similar effect there as well. Let me grab the inflate. Let's do add. Let's turn the lazy mouse on. And let's just puff this up a little right here. And I'm going to do the same thing up here as well. And you know what? As I'm doing this, let's just make that eyelid on the bottom nice and exaggerated, right? And before I do the top one, I do need to make sure that this eyeball is in the right position and is the right scale, right? So let me adjust that a little more. And just like before, right, we'll create the eyelid from this sphere here, so that's fine. All of this here needs to be forward more, so I'm just going to use the inflate. And to add that fold, let me add a little more folds here. So I'll just kind of start raising this up. And the reason I'm doing that is because I see like there's another little fold behind it, right? Which I really like. I think that's really cool and important, right? You want to have that effect of like double fold, especially for the eye, right? I think that's cool. And I'm still in 512 Dynamesh, so I'm going to Control and drag, just clean this up. If I wanted to, I can also grab my Damien standard, just create maybe a little bit more of a line here. All right, and as I said before, if I see something super wobbly, I can always use my trim dynamic to kind of flatten this a little and just make it a little cleaner. Really cool. Now to get the eyelid going, let's do the same thing. I'm just gonna grab this eye, duplicate it just like we did before, right? Grab the top one, and this time I'm just gonna inflate it a little. And that's gonna be the eyelid. And if I wanted to, I could actually get the shape of this by doing Control and Shift, and instead of using a knife, no, let's use the knife. Let's do Control and Shift. Let's start dragging, and you want to make sure that this gradient part is in the bottom. So let me flip this over actually. So I think it's almost something along these lines. I'm going to make a cut, and that's going to give me the eyelid shape. Now, of course, I can go to Move and manually move this around. Just like before, I wouldn't mind this to be a little bit thicker, so I'm going to inflate this whole thing. And I'm going to re-Dynamesh this. And just like before, I'm going to add, use the inflate brush to create those nice inflates in the front of the eyelid, right? Let's use our Damien standard to press this in and add a couple lines there, right? Just like we're seeing in the reference. Maybe this one is actually a little bit too big. And we can smooth some of this out. And I'm going to use trim dynamic to maybe, again, flatten this area up. All right, so let's continue down the shape. So the next thing is going to be, let me think. I think this is going to be the teeth, right? And I'm seeing 1, 2, 3 or 4 on this side. And there's probably more on the other side. So how do we do the teeth? What would be the best way to do that? I think for that, we could just use a sphere as well. So I'm going to insert another sphere, and that's going to be my tooth, right? And the reason I'm using a sphere is because you can see these are very bubbly and round. So I want to do the same thing. So for the teeth, I can even move this down, so I know that's kind of a next one in line. And let me just scale it down and put it into, into a proper position, right? Let's just worry about this big one, and then we'll make the other ones from it, right? So just like I'm seeing there, I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Okay. And let's come over here for a minute. And another thing we can do, of course, grab our move, turn our symmetry on. Let's get AccuCurve. Let's find the very end of this tooth. And to make it sharp, I'm just going to literally just pull it down. Okay. Now, when you're pulling it down, you have to be mindful about the front view as well, right? So just make sure that you are indeed finding kind of the end there. And I think that's pretty good. Now to create that, there's a nice bend there. To do that, I'm just going to go to Move. And let me literally just use the Bend Curve modifier and just do something like that. And just literally bend this like this, right? I think it's close enough. I'm going to go say Accept. And let's grab our, let's make this a little bit smaller. And let's just start putting into position. Just going to put one here. And it does seem to be very close to the eye and somewhat larger, right? So I'm going to try to do the same thing. Let me actually turn this tooth into a 256 Dynamesh. And I can do a little bit of a polish. And I think that's going to give me the topology I'm looking for. I like the top of the tooth and the bottom. I think that's very close to what I'm seeing here. Couple things, right? I'm looking, and this does still feel like it's closer to the eyelid even more. So you know what? Let me grab my eyelid, actually select it, and I would like to add a little detail here as well. Let me just press this in a little more. I can press 1, remember, to make it more dramatic. Smooth this out. I see some bunching up right there, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do something like this. I just want to stay close to the reference as much as I can. It's literally just sketching this part in. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Now, it does feel like it's a little bit closer to what I'm seeing here. And what I'm going to do is press Alt, select this, and let me just pull this part. Let me jump out of the OcuCurve mode and just literally just pull this up, right? Again, I'm just trying to really stay as close as I can to the reference. And this thing is just so close to his eye. All right. Now, to get this tooth right there, all we need to do is just simply duplicate it. Now we have 2 of them. Grab my move and just literally just move it to the side. Definitely jump out of the symmetry mode. And essentially what I want to do is maybe make it just a little bit smaller and of course rotate it a little bit, right? I can adjust this to make sure it matches, right? I can grab my move brush and I need to make sure that this here is actually overlapping the tooth a little better. And then you have the straight line shooting down. So I'm going to do the same thing. Do something like that. All right, to make it look like these teeth are really part of this, I'm going to grab my inflate and let me just add just a little bit of a kind of a little inflate right here to make it look like they're inset inside the teeth. Right? And it's very subtle, but I think for 3D, that's really important that it looks like it's actually inset right here. And now to duplicate these teeth over, right? Let's just smooth this out so it's not so strong. To duplicate these, I'm going to grab this. Let me do a flip and do a mirror and weld. Click Alt on this one. I'm going to mirror it across, do a mirror and weld, and now I have teeth going all the way around, right? Make sure that makes sense. Let me grab this one, and it still feels like it should be somewhat angled a little bit more, at least for the 3D version. I think that just feels pretty great, right? So right there, I think is what we want. Don't forget to save your work if you're following me along. Okay, so next let's talk about his mouth. So I'm looking inside the mouth, and you can see there's a cavity, right? So I'm going to grab my inflate, click Alt, and click on the bottom jaw here. And right now we're really low resolution at 128. I think that's a little bit too low. Let's go ahead and increase this to 512, just so we can start adding some folds and anything else we need. So do Control and drag. That's going to give me 848,000 points. All right, I think that's good. I'm going to smooth this out. And holding down the Alt key, with the inflate brush, I'm going to start kind of creating the same effect that I'm seeing here, where you're just pushing in the mouth inside, right? For the tongue, I think the easy switch to get the tongue going was going to be using another sphere. So I'm going to keep inserting spheres. Let me insert another one. This is going to be my tongue. And I see that there's double tongue, which is really cool. I actually had never seen that before. Let me go into a side view. And you know what, before I do it right here, let me just kind of sculpt it into what I need it to be first. Kind of out here in the space, right? And let's look at this tongue. So we have kind of 2 pieces overlapping each other. And we can do the same kind of effect by, let's just grab this piece and make it just a little bit smaller. And then we'll, let's do another one. And then you know what, let's just do something like this, right? That's going to be the base of the tongue. Do Control and drag to make another one, and then we'll do something like that where it's kind of This is going to be the top section, right? So I think something like that is great. Grab our move. Let's turn AccuCurve on, turn Active Symmetry on. And it's a sharp tongue, so I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull it out. All right. Turn the AccuCurve off. And let's go ahead and do Control and drag to get rid of the masking. Control drag again to, I'm going to go back into Dynamesh mode and kind of seal these together, but I want to do it at 512 as well. So do that and do Control and drag. And now I have this really nice line that I'm seeing right there as well, right? I don't really need it to be here, so I'm going to get rid of this one, but I do like it here. Now it is a tongue, so it's going to have two kind of inflated sides. So let's just do the same thing. I'm going to Active Symmetry and literally just inflate kind of both of these sides here and create something like that. Let's just sculpt this into what we are seeing there, and of course it has this really nice press right there in the middle, right? I like that, and it has a really sharp line there too, right? So that's Damien standard. You can just press this in and do one. Let's press one a bunch of times. And if you're not happy with the alignment of this, I can do, let me undo this. And let me do, I'm gonna click, hold on the shift key, make a green line, and then release the shift. And then press one a bunch of times. And that's just gonna give me a perfect line down the middle. Do Control and drag to reDynamesh and just smooth this out, right? And now I have something very similar to what I'm seeing here. I don't know if what else I need to do. I think I'm going to take this top part and just do something like this and just really just pull this down, right? So in my opinion, this is very close to what that is, and now I just need to put it in position, right? So let's just make sure we happy with it, because we're going to make two of them, right? So any kind of addition or anything else that you want to do, this is your time to do it. And I think that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and scale it a little more, just maybe make it a little smaller, go into a side view, and initially I'm just going to put it right there, right? And I can rotate it too, and let's just decide what the size of this needs to be. There's going to be two of them. Now, keep in mind, whenever you're doing scale, always jump out of the symmetry, right? Because that's going to completely destroy your shape. So one of the things that we could see is that we need more, we need to press this part in. So I'm going to do Alt and click on this and grab my move. And let me just literally just take all of this here and just push it in, right? Because all of that is going to be kind of the mouth part, right? So we need this to be a cavity. More of a cavity kind of a shape. So that's important, right? Let's push all of this in. I think that's great. I'm going to grab my inflate brush and let me just inflate this right here just a little more, just so I have, I kind of maintain this almost like a, I guess like a lip, right? Going all the way around. Do Control and drag, clean this up. I keep using Trim Dynamic to press in anything that I want to make less blobby. That's my own, right here you can see I have like these 3 blobs. I don't like them, so I'm just gonna make my brush kind of large and just literally just file them down. That's a good word, filing them down. That's what I'm doing. So you can see how very quickly I can just like get rid of that and make it nice and clean, right? Very cool. I don't really need this here either. Let me clean this up. And I think that is pretty close to what I'm seeing there. Now with the tongue, I need to make sure that it does go all the way down. So let me turn on the transparency mode and just literally just push this bottom down, right? So something like that. Let's turn our X symmetry on, just make it a little bit wider. Clean this up. All right, very cool. And now we just need to make sure that we have 2 of them, right? So I'm gonna grab my move, put it on the side, right here. Turn the symmetry off. Let's do one on the side. To make another one, I'm just going to do a duplicate and a mirror. And now I have two of them side by side, but they're not, you know, they're still separate tools. So we have still full control over these. I think that's important, right? And let's take a look and see, go into a perspective view. And now with this double tongue, and I think that feels pretty cool. We can do any final adjustments that we need, but the next thing that I'm seeing is going to be the teeth. And I think it would be silly to make another one. Let's just steal this one. So I'm going to press Alt and click on the front tooth, and let me duplicate it. Go to the side view, jump out of the perspective view, grab my move, and I'm looking to get this one going first. So I'm just going to literally move it into position, and I need to flip it over, right? It's facing the wrong way. So if you want to flip it over, right, instead of mirroring on X, I know that the front is going to be Z, right? So what I could do is I can turn X off, put Z on, and just do a mirror. And now if you click on, if you check the tooth, you can see that it's actually facing the other way. Let's click on this to center it. And we can also unlock it, reset our pivot, lock this back up. And now we have a tooth that we stole from here, but it's very similar to what we need here, right? We just maybe make it a little bit longer, and we can of course adjust the shape of it, but essentially we just want to, you know, do something like this, right? You can see that the tooth, the top of the tooth is aligned with the top here. So it's going to be more like that, right? I think that's pretty much perfect. All right, and just like before, I'm going to press Alt and select the bottom part of the jaw and just create kind of little indentations for, you know, to make sure that the teeth feel like they're inset inside the shape, right? So let's just literally inflate the very edges of these just a little bit and create something that feels something along these lines. I think that's a good good decision. Let's go ahead and do that for this tooth as well. All right, and then this way it matches the top, and you can see the reference has that a little bit as well, the little insets. I added a little bit of detail here that I'm seeing right there. And I could even pinch this as well if I wanted to. To get the teeth on the other side, just like we've been doing, let's just simply mirror them across, right? All right, so to continue, let's take a look. I think everything is really good. It does feel like the tongue on my end is just a little bit too large. These seems to be somewhat smaller, so I can address that in a minute. One thing I want to point out for anyone who is doing this kind of work, once you build your base shapes and you add all the details, you know, going back and doing little touch-ups and proportion adjustments, it's almost like, you know, yet another thing that you need to do in addition to putting the detail in. The time to adjust little tiny things could be incredibly time-consuming and infinitely long, right? All right, so let's just continue. So at this point, I'm really liking everything that I'm seeing. I could say that maybe the tongue on my end is just a little bit too large. If I wanted to quickly adjust that, let me do that. If I select one of them, let me just see where are they both. So they are right next to each other. So technically, if I wanted to, you know, I could just combine them into one. Let's just do that so we can also scale them together at the same time. So I'm just going to merge them down, and I'm going to say OK. So now they're in the same layer, both tongues. But if I turn on my polyframe and do auto groups, they should technically be different polygroups, right? So this one is kind of a, I don't know if you could see it, but they're definitely two different colors. And they are touching, right? So I don't want to, I'm going to jump out of Dynamesh mode. I don't really want to blend them. I want to keep them separate. But for this next little tiny adjustment, I wanted to put them on the same layer just so I can play with scale, right? So now if I go into move and let me go into transparency mode. Let's go ahead and unlock this, reset this, and let's just put the pivot like somewhere right here. I'm going to lock this back up and make sure that it's in the center, which it's not. So let me adjust that really quick. I want it to be right here in the center. And essentially what I want to do is, let me jump out of transparency mode. I just want to have the tongue to be somewhat close to what I'm seeing in the reference. So I know that mine is just a little bit too large. So let me just start kind of getting it down. I think it's more like this, right? I can even move this back maybe. And it's a little bit hard too, because there's two different modes, right? There's the orthographical view and the perspective view. And they are, you know, because you're in 3D, it's going to, you know, it's going to be sometimes a little bit hard to decide what size things are. But making this smaller definitely feels a little bit better, right? I think that's a little bit closer. It does feel like this front jaw is pushed back maybe a little more too. So I could see if that's necessary, but I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is pretty good, right? The next big thing is definitely going to be the neck. I'm looking at the neck and it has these three really interesting parts, right? Let's address that next. So I'm going to press Alt and click on my neck. And one thing I don't want this line here that I have, right? So let me deal with this really quickly. How can I do this? So I can do Control and drag. I can do a Shift. And let's just literally just melt this down, because we are in such low resolution in the Dynamesh mode. I can literally just melt this away and keep going. And you know what? If I hold on the Shift key, I can bump up my intensity. Remember, we adjusted that earlier, and just really make this nice and smooth, right? All right, very cool. I'm going to jump out of the perspective view for a second. And to get these three, I don't know what they're called, neck parts, pieces, panels, strips, straps, I don't know. I definitely need a little more neck here. So this is not enough neck for me. So what I'm going to do is I keep jumping between move with active symmetry and the move infinite, right? They're both equally amazing. So what I want to do is essentially I just need to push this back down and give me more room to create the three strips, right? And I'm going to do, as the reference, kind of cut off obviously the design right here. And I think that should be enough, right? So we'll do like a bust. And now if I'm looking, if I'm spinning this around, I like how it looks from the side, right? Let's just make sure that we are indeed liking this. I like this space right here. You can see how this neck right here is kind of following the jawline. So here's my jawline, and then here's the neck. And the spacing between my neck and the reference neck is definitely way too large, right? So all of that detail is super important, and it just takes a lot of time to just do little touch-ups that are necessary, right? So let's just really zero in just on this section here. A lot of times when you have a really complex design such as this, and there's so many things going on, the secret is to just focus on one little tiny section and fully move into it and just worry about that section only. And that's what I do. It's something that you have to train yourself as an artist when you're doing more complex designs, to just zero in on specific little elements, And right now, let's just look at this neck only, and I'm just gonna adjust this a little more and decide if this works. I think it does, right? So this feels a little bit better, and then it kind of grows out right here. So it's kind of getting to be a little thicker, and then of course that's going to be his body, right? There's like a little bump here. We could I don't know if that's important or not, but I have a little bump here as well. And I see a bunch of creases and folds here, which we can add shortly. But what I need to do next is I need to create these little strips. And essentially all I need to do really is just make one and then copy it, right? So what would be the best way to model something like this? This is really interesting. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use masking, and then I'll just use extract with a cut tool. And that is what I think I'm going to do, right? And before I do, I just need to make sure that it does feel really nice from all the angles. So for example, if I go in the back of the character, I'm not loving this bump going out like this. So all of this is really important for sculpting, right? I just want to make sure that anyone who's doing this with me, it's really important to kind of in slow motion spin it around and just make sure that all the shapes feel really good from every angle, because it might look good from, you know, the side, the front, and the top, but then 45 degrees in and you could see maybe something that you're not loving and you just want to adjust it just a little bit. And a lot of times it just takes little tiny adjustments. So that's the big secret in sculpting, is just these little tiny movements, little adjustments. That's what will take your sculpt from you know, pretty good to amazing. So it just takes time. All right, let's see. So, and I'm not saying by no means that I'm at that point. I just kind of know what it takes. But of course, I would say it takes many, many years of practice, right? So one of the things that I'm realizing, even on my sculpt right now, like if I just look at the reference on mine, you know, my eye is catching the fact that this right here feels a little bit different. So I can actually go in and maybe do something similar, right? I kind of like how this kind of blobs down or pulls down almost like gravity is pulling it. I don't have that, right? I think that's really cool. All right, even this is a little bit better. Okay, so let's do the neck. What would be the good way to address the neck? All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is obviously select my neck. And we could stay in perspective view if we wanted to, doesn't really matter. But my Dynamesh resolution here needs to be much higher for me to get a nice extraction out of this. So 128 is way too low. Let me jump, I'm gonna jump way high to like 512. And right now it's at 45,000 points. If I do control and drag, I went to 900,000, right? That's a huge jump. But now if I press control key, and my mask pen is selected, right, in my quick picks here. So if I hold on the control key and start masking it out, you can see that I get a nice clean kind of a mask. And I can use this technique to extract the panels that I want in the perfect shape. So what I need to do is I'm gonna press S, make my brush just a little bit smaller, and literally just draw what I'm seeing here, right? So just have to be careful of where it's starting. It's starting from somewhere around here, I think. So I'm gonna do that same thing. And I'm not gonna worry about these ridges and these little things. I just need to make a kind of a straight panel first, and we can use the knife tool to create all those other little elements that are little cuts and things, right? So essentially, this should work. Make sure your active symmetry is on if you're doing this with me. And I just wanna go around. I could see that this is kind of flipping up a little bit. I like that. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to flip this up just a little, something like that, right? All of that is important. And we can make all these adjustments. Let's just press Control key and just maybe color this in. So essentially, we're just drawing the strap that we will extract from this geometry, right? Like extra. If you needed to clean something up, press Control and Alt. And now you can make some cleanup. You can erase some of these lines, if that's something you need to do. And it doesn't need to be precise. Again, we can clean all this up, but just go around and make sure it's meeting here, right? Let's go ahead and do that all the way around. All right, so I'm gonna do that, go all the way around here and connect this line here. Let's go ahead and color this in, make sure we don't have any gaps or patches. And that should be pretty much perfect, right? Now, how do I extract this? Well, to extract it, what I need to do is go to, we need to stay in Subtool. Let's come down here where it says Extract. And even if we leave everything as is, the thickness by default is 0.02. If I say Extract, you can see that something was extracted, but I can't from this angle tell the thickness of it. So I'm going to turn this a little bit and do it one more time. And honestly, I think this is actually perfect. So I'm liking this. I'm going to say accept. As soon as I press accept, a new layer was created, but you could see that it's still masked. I'm going to do Control and drag to get rid of the mask. And you can also see, if you look carefully, on the previous layer up here, if I hide the portion that we extracted, this is still masked as well. A lot of times this will mess you up. So make sure you clear your mask after you extract. So Control and drag to clear that out. It's important. And now we have this, right? Now, keep in mind, we don't need to make all of these, the same way. We can just do one and then we can cut it, right? Now, here's the thing. If we start creating the cuts on this one, then all the cuts are going to look exactly the same and it's going to look like we copied it, right? So what I propose that we do is let's make the 3 straps, we'll put them in position like these, like little steps. And then we'll use the knife on each one and individually essentially mess them up. And by doing that, we're going to get a unique design on each, right? So it doesn't look like we just cheated and just simply, made one and copy pasted it 2 more times, right? So I'm going to do that. So the first thing I want to do here is let's turn this into Dynamesh. So I'm going to go, I need a lot more resolution again. 512 is good. I'm going to do Dynamesh. And now this is about 178,000 points. It should be fine. And one thing that I need to do now is I need this to be perfectly straight. Right now it's very kind of uneven and blobby, right? So let's use the knife tool. I'm going to do Control Shift, grab the knife, and what I could do is just simply, I'm going to make a cut. So I'm going to press Alt and do something like this. And I do like that angle right there, so I'll do something along these lines. And now I have this sharp angle, just like I'm seeing here. And then there's a sharp, nice clean line coming down. Let's do the same thing here. Let's do something like this. Press Alt, just make this nice turn here. And we can hold on the space bar, obviously, to move this around. But something along these lines I think is pretty perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and make a cut. And now I have this nice clean line. And if I needed to clean up anything else, maybe, the part where it meets together with the bottom part, I can chop that up and that's perfectly fine, right? Maybe not even, you just have to make sure that you find the right angle if you do decide to do what I'm doing. So I just want to do something like that. I think that's fine. All right, cool. All right, so let's take a look, and I'm liking all this. Before I lift these up, you can see how they're kind of lifted up. I'm gonna have mine be kind of flushed against the body at first, and I'm gonna lift them up once I make the other 2. So to do this, let's do this. Let's move this all the way down just so we can easily find it, right? I'm getting a lot of subtools at this point. But I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Now I have 2. And I'm going to jump out of the perspective view, go into the side view. And I just want to get the second one into the right position. So I'm going to grab my move. So I need to make sure that I can see both, right? All right, very nice. And now, of course, it's not fitting well. So let me adjust it. Let me go into a transparency mode and just literally pull this out a little bit so I can see it a little bit better, right? And make sure that it's, we can start playing around and making sure it kind of resembles what I'm seeing in the reference. Okay, and then let's do one more, right? So I'm going to say duplicate and do the same thing, grab my move and put the third one down as well. And it's going to be somewhere around here. All right, and now it's just a matter of adjusting it. So let me adjust these around, and I'm going to fast forward through this part just to make sure that I take the time to align them. All right, once you've done the same, next let's add these little cuts, or the little distortion on the bottom. So I'm going to do this from the top down, right? So let's grab the first one. And I am going to do it in symmetry. I think this other side could be exactly the same. And just turn your camera a little bit, right? So this is important. Right now, I'm not in perspective view, right? So I know that this is perfectly in alignment. But you could also see that my little stripes or straps are on the angle, right? So I am going to be in the symmetry mode, but I am going to turn my camera like this because I want to make sure that when I cut this, it's on the right angle of the of these little things, right? So I'm going to do something like this. This is going to be the angle of my camera. Then do Control Shift and grab my knife tool and just kind of I'll attempt to follow what I'm seeing here, which is something along these lines. I'm going to press Alt twice to make a sharp cut, and let's just do something very similar. I guess it's something like that. Very nice. So at this point, it's going to be just little touch-ups. So for example, if I look at my version here, and let's say I want to stay to the reference as much as I can, right? One of the things personally that I can notice is that this lip right here is pulled down way more than mine, right? I like everything, but let's just together, right, just for the sake of exercise, let's go over this and see if we can scan and train our eyes to see certain specific details, right? So if I look up here, let's do it together. We can see the top lid is looking pretty well, right? It's matching relatively close. You can see there's this green thing that overlaying the eye, and the one feedback that you could one constructive criticism I can tell myself is that maybe mine is just a little bit too thick, but because it is 3D, I feel like that's an important shape to emphasize. These two little things are present, which is good. You have this kind of a bowl right there, some folds, and then it kind of comes down. So we have all of that, which is great. These little, red things, I think are looking pretty good as well. They're somewhat distorted. They're not all even. So all of that detail is important, right? Some of these are not perfectly round, so I have that. Then you have these kind of lines in the back of his head, which are present on my character as well. We don't have the brain yet, right? Obviously, because this part here has to be transparent. So that's more of a next step, which is going to be the texture. But if I come down here, you can see the eye has this shape on the top eyelid, which is really important. And then you have these folds right next to the front tooth. So I have that, right? And that's one of the really important skills too, when you're doing references, to train your eye to focus on every little section of the reference, and just make sure that it works, right? And then you have the mouth is going to go all the way up almost to that second tooth, so I have that. You have the two little tongues right here, and I think they work well. This right here is just that black area right there, so that's going to be done more, I think, picked up by lighting and rendering, right? Then coming down here, I have this little sack here that's a little extra heavy, so I have that. And you have the two lines in the back, and you have this kind of pulled back a little more, so I tried to do that. And it does look like the jaw is overlapping this here. I don't have that, right? So boom, I just ran into a problem. So that's what it takes, right? Then you find the little things to adjust. So I'm gonna tuck this in a little more, and now maybe if I angle this at the right angle and pull this in, it will look like maybe this is overlapping a little bit better, right? So that's important. Right now it looks like this is overlapping instead of this strap being on top of the jaw, right? That's cool. So I got that. Now these three straps look like you got 1, 2, 3 with these little noise, the little distortions in the bottom. You have the little lines here. The only thing that we're missing now are little fuzzy hairs, right? So we can add that as well, and those could just be fiber mesh. And we can do that in the next step, which is going to be the rendering, or poly painting and rendering, right? I think that's going to be that. So as far as the modeling and sculpting goes, I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is pretty great. The only comment that I have for me personally is that this jaw line right here needs to be much lower. So that creates an interesting point. How do I adjust that with these teeth being on a different layer, right? how would I do that? And I can also do a little BPR too. That's going to be an interesting preview as well. And so to adjust this, what would I do? So what I need to do is I'm going to select the mouth, right? The bottom jaw part. And I'm going to jump out of Dynamesh. I'm kind of done sculpting for now. What I would like to do is I need to find these teeth, and I'm going to put everything on one layer. So if I hold on the Alt and let's just select this tooth, for example, I can see where the teeth are, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge them all in one. So if let me see. So this is the top teeth, right? This one is the bottom one, and this one is the bottom one. So I'm going to merge these two down. Say okay. And again, this is going to be the bottom one, so I'm going to merge this down as well. I just want to merge the bottom ones, right? I don't want the top. And I'm going to merge this down. And this one is the middle one, so merge that down. Okay, so now I have this entire line of teeth. You can see that they're all lighter, right? Meaning they're all in the same layer. Now what I could do is I can select my head, which is all the way up here, and I'm going to move it down to where my teeth are. And I'm going to merge that down as well, right? Now I have this entire jaw with the teeth all on one layer. And if I turn the polyframe on, you can see there's still different polyframes. So I can split them at any time by polygroups, right? I can always go backwards if I needed to. But the cool thing about them being on one layer is that now I can make these small adjustments for sculpting purposes, right? So if I match the angle a little bit better and grab my move, make it somewhat large, make sure my active symmetry is on, I can try to take this third tooth right here and just pull it down all at the same time with the jaw, right? So let me just very slowly attempt to do that and create something very similar to what I'm seeing here. You almost see this big drop here, which I don't even have, right? So all of that right here is just gonna drop down. All right, and I think that's feeling a little bit better, right? All right, and that's what it takes. So I just wanted to kind of show that one little step. And I think, honestly, I'm pretty happy with this. I think I'm gonna stop the video here just because it's getting so long. And in part 2, let's go ahead and polypaint this guy here in ZBrush because this is a high-res version, right? So we'll polypaint this, and then we can even bring it into Blender and maybe create a nice rendering as well, like a final shot. So I really hope you are following me along for practice. Thanks for watching part 1, and I'll see you guys in our next video, which is going to be part 2. All right, thanks.